Father's Day, June 15th, 2025. It was supposed to be one of those picture-perfect summer Sundays. Bright skies, packed parks, and the sound of children laughing as families across Quebec gathered to celebrate. For 3-year-old Claire Bell, it began with all the innocence the day promised. She was last seen in LaSalle, Montreal, chubby cheeks, playful curls bouncing beneath her sun hat, a little lunchbox in one hand, and her favorite jelly sandals on her feet. Her clothes were bright, her smile brighter. She was exactly what you'd expect from a child her age. Unfiltered joy in motion. But by the time the sun began to set, that joy had turned into something else entirely. According to her mother, Rachel Todd, the two had traveled to Coteau-du-Lac later that afternoon to visit family friends near the canal. It was a spontaneous detour, not part of the original plan. The details from here begin to blur, like smudges on a photograph you wish had never faded. Rachel told police she had taken her eyes off Claire for just a moment. A short walk to the car, a quick check on the barbecue, a brief conversation. Nothing unusual, nothing that would suggest tragedy was looming. But when she turned back, Claire was gone. No screams, no splashes, no wandering toddler in sight. Just the quiet ripple of the water and the eerie stillness of a suddenly hollowed afternoon. The 911 call was placed at 4:22 p.m. Within minutes, local police arrived. Helicopters lifted off. Divers were summoned. Dogs were brought in to track the scent. The canal was dragged. The woods were combed. From Montreal to Coteau-du-Lac, one question echoed in two cities. How does a child vanish in broad daylight without a trace? And as news of the disappearance spread like wildfire across Canada, another more terrifying thought began to take root in the minds of investigators and the public alike. Had someone taken her? The joyful echoes of Father's Day had gone silent. And with them, so had Claire. The moment Claire Bell's name hit the emergency radio frequencies, the race began. It was still Father's Day, June 15th, 2025, and daylight was fading fast when law enforcement launched a massive bi-provincial response. Claire had vanished somewhere between Montreal's LaSalle borough and the quiet, leafy neighborhoods of Coteau-du-Lac, Quebec. The uncertainty alone was paralyzing. Was she lost? Was she taken? Had something far worse already happened? Within hours, police cruisers from the Sûreté du Québec, SQ, joined forces with the Ontario Provincial Police, OPP, responding as if time itself were the enemy. Canine units were deployed with haste, their noses buried in soil, grass, and riverbanks. Helicopters cut across the sky in sweeping arcs. Drones hovered low over fields and woods. The search grid expanded across city parks, along hiking trails, near riversides, and deep into the farmland that lines the Quebec-Ontario border. Command centers sprang up overnight, one near the marina in Coteau-du-Lac, another just outside Cornwall. Tactical trucks lined up like dominoes along back roads. Searchers moved in sync through forests, field by field, step by painstaking step. The weight of the mission sank in almost immediately. This was not just a missing persons case. It was a race against heartbreak. Volunteers came in waves. Parents, strangers, neighbors. Some clutched flashlights. Others carried snacks or water, hoping Claire might be found tired and scared, hiding beneath a tree. Their eyes scanned ditches, barns, and abandoned sheds. Her tiny face stared back at them from posters stapled to light poles, storefronts, and windshields. But the longer the search stretched, the more the tone shifted. Officers, trained to contain emotion, grew visibly shaken. The hours ticked into a second day. The second day crept into a third, and still no sign of Claire. No shoe, no snack, no trace. The ground beneath them felt bigger than ever. It was a moment suspended in time, June 18th, around 3 p.m., when the cold, mechanical eye of an Ontario Provincial Police drone changed everything. The drone had been part of a broad aerial sweep across the farmland outside St. Albert, Ontario, a rural stretch nestled near Highway 417. To many in the search party, hope had already begun to fray. It had been over 3 days since Claire Bell, just 3 years old, vanished without explanation. The terrain they were covering was vast, unyielding, and largely unforgiving. But then, the screen lit up. There she was, Claire, alive, sitting in the tall grass just off a narrow access road. Her little legs folded beneath her, still holding the very same lunchbox she'd been seen with on June 15th. No tears, no panic, just wide eyes and a quiet stillness. A toddler surrounded by silence, staring up at the drone as if it were a bird from another world. The search team, watching the live feed, fell silent for a moment. Then chaos erupted. Radios buzzed, coordinates were relayed, and ground teams shifted into high gear. Officers and medics rushed toward the location with speed and purpose sharpened by disbelief. When they reached her, Claire was, against all odds, alert, responsive, and seemingly unharmed. No bruises, no visible trauma, no signs of starvation or dehydration. Despite nearly 72 hours in the wild, she was, by official report, alive and well. The footage would later be played on national news, though only in brief clips. The mystery deepened. How had she gotten there? Who brought her? And why was she left alone, so far from home? Authorities said little in those first hours, only confirming that Claire was safe and had been taken to a nearby hospital for evaluation. But for investigators and the public watching in awe, this wasn't just a rescue. It was a miracle wrapped in mystery. The headlines called it a miracle. Social media lit up with celebration. Across Quebec and Ontario, a collective exhale swept through communities that had followed every moment of the three-day search. Claire Bell, just 3 years old, was found alive near a remote field in St. Albert, Ontario. She was safe, alert, and incredibly still clutching her pink lunchbox. She was immediately transported by ambulance to a nearby hospital. Doctors confirmed the unthinkable. Despite spending more than 70 hours alone in the wilderness, Claire showed no signs of serious injury, abuse, or neglect. Slightly dehydrated, a few scrapes on her knees, but otherwise miraculously well. The best possible outcome, authorities declared at a press conference the next morning. Applause broke out in the room. First responders were moved to tears. But even as the province cheered, investigators were sharpening their focus. Claire's disappearance had never made sense. Not to police, not to the public. From the moment her mother, Rachel Todd, reported her missing on June 15th, discrepancies in her story began to raise alarms. Why had the family been in Coteau du Lac? Why couldn't Rachel account for the exact timeline? And how could a toddler travel nearly 100 miles alone? On June 19th, just one day after Claire's recovery, the mood shifted dramatically. Rachel Todd, 34, was arrested in Montreal. The charge, child abandonment. Police did not disclose full details immediately, but the arrest was coordinated between the Sûreté du Québec and the Ontario Provincial Police, signaling the seriousness of the investigation. Rachel was taken into custody without incident. Authorities stated that Claire had been intentionally left in a remote location and that the ongoing investigation would explore potential accomplices, transportation methods, and Rachel's motive. No one else had been charged yet, but the public was warned. This was no longer just a missing child case. It was a criminal one. What began as a miracle recovery had now twisted into a tale of betrayal. A mother accused of abandoning her daughter in the wilderness. The happy ending was real, but so was the reckoning that followed. With Claire Bell now safe and recovering, attention turned swiftly to understanding how she ended up alone in rural Ontario, nearly 160 kilometers from where she was last seen. As the media frenzy cooled, police investigators were just getting started. And soon, a new figure emerged at the center of the case, a critical witness whose story could change everything. The Sûreté du Québec, SQ, working closely with the Ontario Provincial Police, OPP, confirmed that they had interviewed a woman who encountered Rachel Todd on the afternoon of June 15th, the very day Claire was reported missing. Though her name was not made public, authorities said she was not a suspect, but a potential eyewitness to key movements and behavior. According to statements released on June 20th, the witness had brief contact with Rachel Todd at a roadside stop somewhere between Coteau du Lac and the Ontario border. The location was rural, lightly traveled, and not equipped with surveillance cameras, making any human account all the more valuable. The timing? Between 9:30 a.m. and 3 p.m., the same window during which Rachel had told authorities she and Claire were on a scenic drive. The details of that encounter remained sealed, but police admitted the interaction had prompted a broader public appeal. Investigators urged anyone who had seen Rachel Todd or Claire Bell in a vehicle, at a gas station, a rest stop, or walking roadside between the Montreal outskirts and eastern Ontario to come forward. Posters went up along highways. Social media flooded with maps and call-outs. Even toll booth operators were asked to review camera logs. The timeline had tightened, and the story now hinged on what could be proven between those 6 mysterious hours. Was Rachel alone when she dropped Claire off? Did she meet someone who helped facilitate the abandonment? Was Claire drugged or coerced into staying in one place? Investigators weren't ready to say, but one thing was clear. This one witness could unlock a series of answers the nation was waiting for. And with every new hour, public pressure mounted to find out exactly what Rachel Todd was doing and why on that Father's Day afternoon. Amid the relief that 3-year-old Claire Bell had been found alive, a new detail surfaced, one that cast a shadow over the timeline and raised more questions than answers. It wasn't just Claire who had vanished that Father's Day afternoon. The family's Chihuahua, a small, tin dog often seen by Claire's side, had also been missing. But unlike Claire, the dog did not survive. Authorities confirmed that during their broad search efforts across Quebec and into rural Ontario, the remains of the Chihuahua were discovered along a roadside route not far from where Claire was eventually found in St. Albert, Ontario. The discovery, while grim, may prove crucial in reconstructing the sequence of events that took place during those missing hours. The exact location of the dog's body was not disclosed, but sources familiar with the investigation suggested it lay somewhere between the Ontario-Quebec border and the final recovery site, suggesting a possible abandonment route or detour taken by Rachel Todd. Forensic analysis of the dog's remains was ordered, as officials hoped to determine whether the animal died from exposure, injury, or something more troubling. The significance of the Chihuahua's fate isn't just emotional, it's logistical. If Claire had truly wandered off alone, could a toddler have made it that far on foot, holding her lunchbox, while accompanied by a dog that later died along the road? Or does the death of the pet suggest a more abrupt and deliberate separation? Perhaps even a vehicle stop or drop-off gone wrong. Adding to the mystery, Claire made no mention of the dog during her brief initial statements, though she was described as alert and aware. At her age, trauma and confusion could easily blur memory. Still, investigators are now re-examining the timeline, placing the dog's death as a potential pivot point in what happened between 9:30 a.m. and 3 p.m. The Chihuahua, once just a family companion, has become a silent witness to something deeper. In a case already full of contradictions, the fate of this small animal might be one of the only physical indicators of the journey Claire endured and how close it came to ending differently. From the moment Claire Bell was declared missing, the public's response was swift, emotional, and overwhelming. What began as a local alert in Coteau-du-Lac quickly exploded into a bi-provincial rescue mission, broadcast across Canada and beyond. Within hours, volunteers gathered in the hundreds, parents, hikers, neighbors, even off-duty police officers, all drawn by a single unifying instinct: to bring Claire home. Social media lit up with her photo, a 3-year-old with soft eyes and a colorful lunchbox, last seen near a quiet road. The image struck a nerve. By that evening, hashtags like #FindClaire and #BringClaireHome were trending in multiple cities. Newsrooms across North America took notice. CBC, CTV, Global News, The Independent, and People magazine all ran continuous updates. The story had everything that stops time: a missing child, a desperate mother's 911 call, and miles of wilderness where a toddler could vanish without a trace. The emotional core of the crisis was driven home by the voices of law enforcement. Sergeant Sean Cameron of the Ontario Provincial Police, OPP, called the situation every parent's worst nightmare. praising the tireless efforts of those who joined the search. "We could not have asked for more from the community," he said. "The outpouring of support, the sleepless nights, the prayers, they mattered." On the Quebec side, Sergeant Eloise Cassette of the Charité du Québec, SQ, echoed those sentiments. "We worked this case not just as professionals, but as parents. The moment Claire was found, alive and well, it became one of the most rewarding moments of our careers." But media coverage didn't stop with Claire's rescue. The arrest of her mother, Rachel Todd, introduced a darker layer to the narrative. The headlines shifted from "missing toddler found safe" to "mother charged after girl found miles away." Public opinion became divided. Some viewed Rachel's arrest as just and necessary. Others questioned what mental state she might have been in. Still, the most lasting impression came from the unity. The helicopters, K9s, drones, and old-fashioned boot searches. The strangers who searched ditches. The shop owner who reviewed camera footage. The reporters who stayed on air through the night. In a world often fractured by noise and division, the search for Claire Bell showed what happens when people come together, without hesitation and without needing a reason beyond hope. Claire Bell may be safely back with authorities, but this case is far from over. On paper, it looks like a miracle. A missing 3-year-old found alive after vanishing across provincial borders. But behind the headlines lies a tangle of unanswered questions, conflicting accounts, and a timeline that still doesn't fully add up. Rachel Todd, Claire's mother, is currently charged with child abandonment. But investigators have made it clear more charges could follow. The court date is set for June 20th, and the spotlight now shifts to what happened during those missing hours on Father's Day. Authorities are reviewing every element of Todd's actions, both before and after her daughter's disappearance. Cell tower pings, GPS data, digital communications, witness statements, and CCTV footage are all being analyzed. The hope is to reconstruct not just a timeline, but a motive. At the center of it all is a key unnamed witness, a woman who allegedly encountered Rachel Todd in the hours after Claire was reported missing. Investigators believe this witness holds vital information that could either fill in the gaps or expose something far more disturbing. There's also the route itself. Claire was found in St. Albert, Ontario, over 150 kilometers from where she was last seen. How'd she get there? Why was she alone? And how did she survive, with her lunchbox still in hand, on the edge of a busy highway, days after vanishing? One grim detail that continues to trouble the public is the death of the family's small chihuahua, believed to have been with Claire at the time she disappeared. Found lifeless along the travel corridor, the dog's fate may offer clues to what happened on that winding journey, or what Claire endured along the way. The authorities are adamant. This investigation is still active. The emotional chapter of Claire's recovery may be closed, but the legal and forensic chapters are just beginning. Todd's defense team remains silent for now, but all eyes will be on the courtroom come June 20th. Claire Bell's story gripped a nation, not just because of the fear, but because of the relief. Yet behind every miracle rescue is often a deeper story that demands answers. In this case, it's far from finished. For more in-depth breakdowns and real-time updates on true crime cases like this one, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss what comes next.